We have a name.
We have a name.
Yeah. Let's talk about the name.
Okay.
Go ahead. What's your idea?
Okay. So I wanted it to be something unique, but kind of short, simple, and not something that was already used in Apple Podcasts, which is super hard to find.
Very hard to find.
But I also wanted there to be like a story behind it that kind of explained, just that would make sense. So I came up with serving lemonade. I think lemonade was the initial thought.
Yep.
Because it was in a season, which it's all like full circle, because it was in a season of lemons. When life gave us lemons, we found each other. So if we would not have experienced lemons, we would not have met, and then now this together is the lemonade that we are making with those lemons that we were given.
Yeah. I love it.
So
I think it turned out awesome. And then we, because I own a marketing company, reached out to one of our designers and said, hey, can you design this real quick? And so he designed the logo like within a few hours before we put the podcast out. So that was cool.
Yep. It took us a while I guess we actually did that pretty fast, picking out what we wanted for the logo.
Yeah.
And then we had the idea to make it the neon letters.
Yep.
So, yeah.
Yeah, I love it. It's awesome. Well, hey.
Merch coming soon.
Merch coming soon for real. We do want to make some cool stuff.
Yes.
We're all about the merch.
Yes.
Hey, thank y'all for watching, the people on YouTubes, and listening. Hopefully we'll get the Apple Music thing set up by the time you hear this.
Mm-hmm.
I think we will.
It actually, the podcast?
Yeah.
It actually is on Apple Podcasts.
Oh, boom. Look at that.
Yep.
So there you go. You can listen in your car if you want. But really what kept us going to the next one was the encouragement from you guys, because there was a lot of viewers and a lot of just positive feedback that we didn't know. I mean, anytime you start something like this, I think I've done 3 or 4 of these, and, you'll get like 5 people to watch it and somebody to say something maybe. But this one was like a lot. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So thank you guys. But
thank you.
We were, today we're in Snowmageddon 2021.
I was going to call this like the Snow Chronicles. Or
Snow Chronicles.
Frozen
I like
Chronicles.
it. But what has happened, if you don't live in the Texas area, we have been hit with a crazy snowstorm. Like it is, and when I say crazy, I mean it's like been snow for days, since 4 days, 3 days? How many days are we going on?
3.
3 days. And it doesn't really snow in Texas very often, like maybe once every couple years. But it snowed, and it is like insane. We'll put a video up on YouTube if you're watching there. But it is like a crazy storm. And so what it did was, Texas is not designed by any means for a storm like this.
No.
So our power has been going in and out. We've been one of the lucky ones here at the condo we're currently at. The power has only gone out twice yesterday and once today. But for most people, it's been like a lot of hours.
And I really, really hope that the power doesn't shut off as we're in the middle of this.
That's true.
That is a likeliness.
That is the fear here. So
we
were we were downstairs when the power went out. We were trying to make lemonade out of lemons, because we're like, okay, the power's out. Now what?
That kind of sounds sexual.
Okay, well.
Just to clarify, he means we were trying to create content for this podcast.
Well, we are newlyweds, so you never know what I mean, actually.
Well, I'm just clarifying.
Okay, thanks for clarifying.
Sorry, Mom.
And Grandma. My grandma listened to the last one. It's awesome. I love you, Grandma. Anyway, so we were just, we're like, hey, let's just put the couch in front of the sliding glass door, because where this condo is, it overlooks the lake, and it's pretty cool. And so we were like, let's just put the couch in front of the door so we can watch people. And we're sitting there, and we're like, what in the world? We started seeing these birds, and we're like, why are there birds everywhere? I mean, these birds are everywhere.
What are they, robins?
I think they're robins, yeah.
Yeah, so yesterday you noticed it whenever you looked out the window across the street out there, and you said, there's so many birds in Miss Lou's tree. And I was like, of course, me being like the dark-minded person I am, I was like, oh my gosh, isn't that a bad omen or
She
something?
immediately went to that. And I think the only bad omen is all the poop on that car across the street. Is ridiculous. So gross.
Yeah, but I mean, that's just, it's weird though. So then this morning, the doorbell rings, and it's
Which is odd.
Yeah, that never happens. It was one of the neighbors, because his truck had been stuck in the snow, I guess.
Yeah, it was in somebody's yard, yeah.
Yeah, so he needed Eric's help, and apparently he was trying to get out because he's a photographer, and he was taking pictures of was he taking pictures of the dead
No,
birds?
I think he was just wanting to take pictures of the lake because the lake's frozen. Which I mean, when's that ever going to happen again?
Yeah, which I called that, and you said there's no way that will happen.
That's true. She did say, I think the lake might freeze. I was like, the lake isn't going to freeze in Texas.
And now it's frozen.
It's frozen. I was totally wrong, and I admitted my fault
Well,
immediately.
it's like in the negatives here, which that's like when you live at the highest mountain in Colorado, because I did live there for 4 months, and it would be -12 was like a normal day, but here in Texas,
that's crazy.
I mean, it's kind of scary / sad for a lot of people.
Yeah, it really is.
But yeah, so he said that the photographer told us there was a bunch of dead birds at the lake. So I still don't know if that's what he's going to photograph or not. But
we'll see.
Regardless,
we'll look it up and see if that's what he was doing.
So it makes me curious because birds are usually like they know when to migrate and when to So it made me think what were they? I mean, obviously they weren't expecting this, or
the birds. That's true.
If it's because they like froze, I don't know.
That's true. Maybe, I mean, they were eating, I assume, so maybe they were hungry. I don't know.
Can't find, who knows? I was supposed to research it before this, but.
Yeah. Well, fun fact, Eric is slightly colorblind, and she said, what kind of birds are those? I was like, well, they're red birds. Look at the red. She goes, I didn't say look at the red. I said, well, they're red birds. And she goes, no, I'm talking about the ones with the orange on their stomach. And I was like, oh, that's what I was referring to, the red bird. Sorry.
Yeah. I was like, that's not, I think of a cardinal when I think of a red bird, not.
That's true. So I'm just going to keep drinking my fruit punch here, and we'll call it good. Just kidding. This is orange. I know it is. It was a joke. No,
Went
nothing.
Right over my head.
Nothing. Okay. Anyway, so what we were doing is we were sitting there and we're like, this is so unexpected. I think you said that. Somebody said something about it being unexpected. And then we talked about, we're like, this whole last season for both of us has been unbelievably unexpected.
I think everyone can relate to that. And just from the pandemic. And I don't want to talk about that too much because I actually was on Reddit today and I saw that someone had actually posted in a subreddit group, can anyone direct me to a podcast where they're not talking about COVID anymore?
That's a good idea.
So
yeah,
maybe
so we'll briefly.
I mean, that's just part of the unexpectedness.
Yeah,
has
so
been
true.
The pandemic. And then, I mean, if you think about life in general, just before the pandemic happened, we both were going through, I mean, the last 3 years of my life have been unexpected and much, I don't want to say worse than what I expected, but more challenging than I was ready for.
Yeah. So what's been some of those challenging things for you? Like you can start with the most challenging and go down if you want or whatever.
Well, it has to kind of go in order.
Yeah, go for it.
So initially it was the separation and then the divorce from my kid's dad. And then it was just the whole
and y'all are married for how long?
4 years.
Yep.
It was after that is when things like we went to Lubbock to work out there. I think I might have mentioned this in the first podcast, but we worked out there, both of us, to go work for a friend, and it just had a really sad ending. The friend that we worked for actually took his own life, and so that was my first experience with anything like that, it being close to a situation like that. So that was really I don't even know that I've fully processed and healed from all of it honestly, but
it's super hard. I mean, we just talking to friends the other day that went through that, and that's just it's just crazy. It's a hard thing.
And then my grandma passed away, and she was my favorite person. And I mean, I talk about her all the time.
She does.
She's the background image on my phone.
Yep.
She was the best, but she did have a good long life. So, and then I think 6 months after she passed away, my uncle committed suicide. So it was just a lot of heaviness, and I don't even know, a lot of unexpected things that you can't really prepare for. So I guess by the time COVID happened, it was like, well, I've just learned how to live life with unexpected things happening. So it's almost like you can never be prepared for a tragedy.
Yeah. Yeah, you really
Never.
can't. It's so hard to walk through. Death is it's never going to be normal for anybody. I mean, it's never going to be like a normal thing. It's just like this is just hard in general. It feels like it's I mean, maybe it's just me, but like it feels like the younger the person is, the harder. Like
Oh,
it just
yeah.
doesn't make. It's just like that doesn't make sense. That person was supposed to live for so much longer. It felt like, and so the younger they are, it just doesn't make sense. And so it's pretty crazy that we were going through. Autumn and I didn't really know each other very well. I mean, we were just business acquaintances. And but we were going through very similar things, almost at the same time. A little different timing, but almost at the same time. It was really crazy. One of now your friends that you've met recently, but one of our friends lost their son and to a drowning.
Baby.
A baby, yeah, really really young, and that was just doesn't make any sense. There's nothing about it that could ever make sense, and it's just so hard. And watch the family go through what they did. And they've been incredible, though.
Yeah.
I mean, those are some of the strongest people I've ever seen in my life to just be where they are now. From is almost a year ago, and to see them now is incredible.
Well, and what I also really love, especially following her on social media, is that, I mean, she's very transparent about, I would like, they are strong because they've had to be, but she's also, I think she does a really good job about sharing her grief too.
Yeah, that's true. Yep.
I mean, I think that's it's almost a cliche thing to be like, well, you're so strong because you've been through, and it's like, well, I don't think I was just born strong. I think this shaped me into, like, I haven't had a choice, Yep. But I really like how she's been able to share that and share God through all of it too.
Yeah. That's what's been cool, I think, about all this unexpected stuff is the way it shapes people is always crazy. Because when you look at, I'll just go with me for a little bit. Like when I look at my life a year ago, I've been shaped in an unbelievable way from then to now. And it's been through things, like unexpected things for me in the past 2 years. Like I went through a divorce. I lost a lot of friends, based on a lot of lies, based on a lot of things that weren't fully true. I lost, a lot of people at my business. I lost a lot of clients, lost a lot of employees, when COVID hit. That was really hard. I own a marketing company, and people don't want to market when their company is falling apart because it feels like I have to hold on to every dollar I have. So that hit us really hard. And then just things like today, like the snow thing, like it's just different. It's unexpected. Like it's just a crazy season of all these unexpected things. And I just barely hit the surface of all those things. But it's crazy to look forward and see what God has done in the past year, because I remember sitting in a room and thinking, like, I think my best years are behind me. Like I think I don't know how I don't have my friends that I had before that I've had for years. I don't have family that I've had before. All my family lives elsewhere, so I didn't really have just like, let me go on over to Dad's house or something. Like they let me live states away. Although I did go to Dad's house, take the boys. But like it was just very different. The unexpected things hit me so hard that I literally thought in a season, I'm not going to have a happy rest of my life, and I'm only 34. But
I think so. That thought, I think that talking about the suicide stuff. Before, I think that it's when people start to feel that hopelessness, that's kind of what leads them down that road, and so it's so easy to fall into that trap of thinking, just not being able to see your way out of something or seeing the silver lining. But a lot of times it's
what did you feel like? What's the bottom, like not like the circumstances around what happened, but like, I know me and I talk about this often. We talk about one of us has feelings and one of us has very little feelings. And so, but like, what did you feel when you were all the way down at the bottom? Like, what was going on in your head?
So honestly, the worst of it for me was in May when I was fired from my job. And I'm just going to be honest. I had I mean, I had told my mom several times I didn't want to live anymore. And, I mean, I've struggled with depression I was diagnosed when I was barely over 14. And so, but if it wasn't for my kids, I don't know. I mean, if I didn't have my kids though, I mean, life would be way different.
Yeah.
It would be totally different. But, like they are what has kept me going, honestly.
Yeah. That's crazy. I think that thought is in a lot of people's heads and a lot and often.
Mm-hmm.
I think we, for some reason, it's kind of one of those hidden things that, I mean, people just aren't vulnerable. First of all, I mean, especially when you're going through that, the last thing you want to do is just be like, well, everyone, just letting y'all know, like I'm feeling like this. Like, nope, everybody's trying to just play it cool. I mean, I don't know, like just not.
I have actually called the suicide hotline before just to talk to someone, just because I felt I didn't feel safe with myself. Like
Wow.
I wasn't sure that I could really be, I don't know. I didn't know what I would do.
Wow. Yeah. And so, I hear things like that, like suicide hotline, and like I've always thought, no one calls that thing. Like, what in the world? But it's one of those things that people get so desperate for relationship and to have someone to just say something to, that they're willing to call a number and talk to somebody they don't know. And so I think the encouragement or the challenge there is check on people. Like if you have relationships that you think like, man, I wonder how that person's doing, you may want to check on them because there's probably a reason why you're feeling like that, because if you feel that they're struggling, the struggle is probably 10 times worse than what you could ever imagine. And I know that's what it was for me. I know for me, the one thing that kind of like made me upset all the time, but I also understood it fully, was when people would say, man, I'm sorry I haven't checked on you. I just didn't know what to say. And I'd be like, man, if you'd have said anything, like literally like anything at all would have been great. Like just because I thought you hated me. I thought you were so disappointed in what I went through, like whatever the case may be. And I think just if you have that feeling, just reach out, because you just never know. I mean, I knew you in May and would have never.
It was not. It was, so that time was actually in 2018.
Gotcha.
January.
Yep.
Which also, January is statistically proven to be like one of the most depressing months of the year. So
crazy.
But it was also the day that we officially, for sure, were separating.
Yep.
And my kids were taken with, their dad, and I just felt very alone, which I know that feeling. But
that alone thing, that's no joke. Like
loneliness is isolation. I mean, I've learned through Regen just how dangerous isolation is and can be.
Yeah. So that's another thing to check. If you know someone who's going through a hard time and they're alone, that's when you need to check on them for sure. Like that loneliness, if you've never been there, sometimes people haven't been there. I hadn't been there until recently. Like I went from my mom to straight to college, surrounded by a ton of people at college, straight into marriage, got married in college at 21, and then had friends, her family, all these people, and then all of a sudden, I mean, like at a drop of a hat, literally nobody. And that was unbelievably hard. And I think it was the hardest part of the whole thing was, I remember that first night going to sleep at a different, we had an Airbnb, and I went and slept at that house by myself with no kids, no wife, no nothing. And that was one night I will never forget. Like that, just the unbelievable. I felt cold, and it wasn't even cold. Like I just, you know what I mean? Like it just was not good.
Well, why don't we lighten the tone a little bit?
Yeah.
What do we want to talk about instead of this?
So here's what I think we need to do. Let's talk about. So that was the unexpected. That was like the bad of the unexpected. So I think let's flip it to like what has come out of that though, because what I thought was gonna be my future, like the best years are behind me, is completely the opposite 1 year later. Like literally 1 year later, completely the opposite. So let's talk about like I mean, a couple things would be for me would be obviously if y'all listened to the last podcast, we got married 4 days ago. 4 days ago, I think it was 4 days ago, something like that.
I don't know.
Tuesday, Friday, yep. Saturday, Sunday, Monday,
12th.
Tuesday, yep. Yeah, and so like the relationship, and I know everything's like, oh, it's just new. I mean, I can feel you watching this video and being like, well, it's just so new that. But the point is,
Watch time.
oh, I'm watching time. We discovered on our last one, if you watched it, it cut off at 30 minutes because the camera we currently have cuts off at 30 minutes. So it's 20 minutes, 31 seconds. So anyway, so like we are now remarried, whole new relationship, totally unexpected. Like you're unbelievable. And it just, well, and like, I mean, seriously though, like what I told you the first day, like I cannot believe that I got to marry you. Like that's just crazy.
Well, and it's crazy for me to hear that because I came out like a year ago. I was in a place, an environment where I was literally told at least once a week, but probably more, that I was just not, I just wasn't quite cutting it. I wasn't able to meet people's expectations. I mean, there's things I don't want to say out loud because it's kind of, I don't want to put an explicit thing on our podcast.
Yeah.
But just, I was really struggling with my self-worth. And I started to believe those things that were said to me. I mean, I started to actually believe they were right. They had to be right. Yeah. And I just wasn't aware that I sucked so much. But, I mean, I started going to therapy and kind of realized, like, from the beginning, like when my dad left the picture, not the picture, but he was gone when my parents divorced. Just ever since then, I always had this void and this feeling of just that I was not worthy. And so it took me really meeting you and then turning all of this over to God and surrendering this relationship and just everything about myself. I had to surrender in order to understand that I am a daughter of the King and that I am worthy of love, and there's nothing I could do or not do to make me any less worthy.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love that it's the same for me, just in a little bit different standpoint of like, I came from a past of thinking that, like, honestly thinking that I was one of the good guys in the room at all times and not realizing that I was very pharisaical. I think that's the word. I got to look that up to make sure because I say it all the time. But anyway, like a Pharisee basically. And so like having you in this new relationship has caused me to be able to like look at life completely different. I mean, literally just from you existing, like I can, and how you deal with things, how you deal with communication and stuff like that. It just helps me because I think just from my past, from very young, like growing up, I'm used to, if someone's upset, it's because of me. And so I automatically like, oh no, that person's upset at me. So now what am I going to do to make them not upset at me? And I just go through this whole thing and really to realize that it's not always about me. I mean, I've heard you say that to me a few times, like not in a bad way, but like literally like, no, it's me, just something I'm just going through, just dealing with. And to be able to like switch that in my mind. Pastor Craig is doing a series called something about your mind. I don't remember what it's called. Changing your mind. I don't remember. Anyway,
Battle Within Your Mind.
Battle Within Your Mind. Yeah, he came with a book and I ordered it.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, I did.
Good.
So basically, like in the Sunday at the church, he was talking about like the battle in your mind and just how we develop these thoughts, and they literally gets wired in our brains, and it makes us think things that may not be true, but we actually like go through and we're having a whole new thought process, and that's what I've done my whole life is like I've wired myself to think this certain way. And especially when people are upset about something, and I've come to learn this is called people pleasing. And so for me, like this recovery that I'm going through, again, we've talked about it a couple of times, but going through this thing called regen, it's been so good for me to not only go through recovery, through the course of recovery, but actually like live it out day to day and be able to have you there, not babying me by any means. That's not your jam, but
No.
like, no, but literally like, hey, this isn't about you. Like this is something I'm going through, and like that alone, it shows that you have a good track record of continuing to like, not if you're not really bothered by anything I do, which is awesome, or at least I don't know if you are. So
No, I mean,
like
I'm not.
yeah, you're really like in your own corner, like you're not concerned about me doing something or not doing something, and I don't know. Anyway, it's just been like that relationship though is completely unexpected and completely like at the right time when I needed it, you know. And so that's been really cool. What's been like the some positive unexpected things for you?
Well, first let me speak on like what you just said.
Okay.
I think that for a long, I mean, it's clear to me that for a very long time you had been in an environment yourself where I think maybe self-awareness just wasn't really. Well, maybe that's not it, but something about just maybe like a false sense of self-awareness, which we kind of talked about last time with like the identity crisis you kind of have,
Yeah.
like just identifying within different roles versus like just who you are. And so I think I was able to recognize that about you pretty early on, and I've just tried to kind of help you come back down to earth in those moments where you felt like I mean, it took a while for you to kind of, you know, there were even like saying, hey, I want to go play volleyball with my friends, and like being scared that it's like in your head you thought I was just gonna have a fit about it and just be like, no, you know, and so you were scared to even bring it up. And right. I'm just not wired that way. I'm pretty okay with being alone, honestly. I mean, I think that I'm very introverted. You are extremely extroverted. And so earlier when you were talking about when you went to college and you were just surrounded by people all the time, I mean, I go through phases of like being extroverted, but I mean, deep down I'm an introvert. And so like sure. I would be the kind of person that I could go to an environment like that, but I would still find a way to isolate because that's just kind of what I do. But
I think you're coming out of your shell of that. I think that could be one of the positives.
I haven't always been a loner, but I kind of I mean, like I said, it's been seasonal for sure. But so yeah, I think that, I mean, and you helped me in many ways of consistency and being held accountable and wanting to be fully honest about everything, especially after just me being there as you went through a lot of rejection from people that were once your best friends, actually witnessing that firsthand and just seeing how you were treated by people who loved the Lord. I'm not judging them. I'm just, you know, I get it because we all suck in our own way. And then like obviously the big blow when you found out about what was happening in your marriage and just the betrayal and just that, I mean, I think I'm a little traumatized, honestly, from that night.
There's some days I think you're more traumatized than I am, for sure.
I mean, I just because of how you are, and you're just so gentle and like sweet and caring, and just your reaction when you first, you know, it was scary. I mean, and I'm not shaming you for it, you know, how I feel about it. But I just knew in that moment, like, that if I had anything to do with it, I would make sure that you never had to feel like that again. And just seeing someone you care about, even though, like, I remember that night we kind of had a conversation before that phone call about marriage, and I was still very hesitant. Do you remember that?
Yep, I do.
And just talking about how I didn't know if I was ready, or I didn't really, you know, I just had all these reservations. And then I prayed. You went to play volleyball that night, and when you left, I just kept praying that God would do something radical, so that way I would know, like, if we were supposed to get married or not. And then that happened, and I had no doubt after that.
Yeah.
And that's when I realized, like, you really never have had someone in your corner. And I wanted, like, I, for the rest of my life, will be that person for you. And don't ever mess with him, because you don't want to catch the wrath of me.
That is awesome. But it's true. Like, that whole, I mean, having someone in my corner in that way that, like, is able to literally see my faults. And just to be clear, like, I haven't been that person for people really at all. I mean, I've been a terrible person, let's just say, because of that whole Pharisaical thing of, like, I got things figured out. So I would just walk around and be like, well, why doesn't this person act like this? Because if they would act like this, then everything would be fine,
Mm-hmm.
So I definitely didn't have people's backs, and I definitely didn't, like, was not the best person. But
I think it was that mindset of it's our acts that get us.
Absolutely.
I think it was kind of like you bought into that versus, I mean, because now you're with me and I say, how many cuss words again have you said?
Per day, how many do you say?
Ever have you said?
Oh, me? Not many.
Maybe
Less,
5.
Yeah.
And I
5 to 10 maybe.
average that on a daily basis. And
Yep.
that's a big change for you.
That's a very big change,
you
yeah.
used to kind of
It was just complete judgment. It was just complete,
yeah.
like,
Anyone that said bad words was a bad person.
Yeah, and it's because of a lot of the stuff we're working through. Like, this podcast is real fun because there's things I want to say, but then I'm like, I better not say that. Better rein that in a little bit.
Just say it.
Well, no, I mean, it's just like growing up. I would just associate, like, I did not drink until I was 21, and then I had a margarita on my 21st birthday, and then I would have, like, a glass of wine here and there, and that was it. Anything associated with beer, I thought bad. I was like, beer equals bad, because I had a stepdad who I would see drink, and he did not treat me well growing up. And so I would associate that, well, because people drink, they are bad people. And so that's just my brain, back to the wired thing. Like, my brain just got wired that way. And so same thing. People that cuss equals bad people. Like, it's embarrassing to say now, honestly. But
I think that's a pretty regulated mindset within the church,
Yeah.
honestly.
yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, and it's like, what's crazy is, like, when you read through the Bible, and I'm definitely not gonna, like, be the one that's like, well, don't do this, but you can do this. Like, I'm not that guy, but, like, what I am saying is, like, when you read through the Bible and you see the verse talks about, like, faith, hope, and love, but the greatest of these is love. And
yeah, I have
the
that
first,
tattooed on me.
you do, and the verse, I mean, it's the greatest commandment, like, love
God first.
Love God first,
love
and
your neighbor.
love your neighbor. Yeah. So, like, all that stuff, like, unfortunately, I did the same thing. Like, I'm admittedly saying that I absolutely was this person, and I still struggle. Like, it's still, like, I'm still recovering from this, but, like, I would, in one breath, be like, well, that person's bad. They cuss. I don't really want to have much to do with them. But in the next breath, be like, oh, everyone love the Lord your God with all your heart and love your neighbor. Like, da-da-da-da. It's like...
And judge not, or you will be judged.
Yeah. And all those things are just, it's just like, huh. Well, okay. You know what's funny about that verse? That
What?
You're going to be judged based on the amount of judgment you judged. Remember how I said I don't have very many friends now? And it's really for things that aren't necessarily true. Well, I feel like I'm being judged for all the years that I judge people, like, so many people that I just judge them based on one thing. And so, like, the unexpected good in all of this has been, I'm being broken of that to where I have relationships now with people that I would have never had relationships with before because of my judgment of good and bad, and, like, the way I weighed things. Like, oh, that person cusses, I don't really want to be their friend. Oh, that person, talks about this or goes drinking or whatever. Like, I can't be around them because they're gonna make me feel like I'm not a good Christian, I guess. And now the unexpected out of that is those people that I had that same judgment against, some of those people are now my best friends in the world. And to think, like, I'm tearing up over here. Golly, to think, like, when I was at that place of like, I don't have any friends, I'm at the bottom here, like I'm at zero.
Those were the ones that were actually.
Those were the ones that
lifting
came
you
and
up.
got me.
Mhm.
Yeah. Like those were the ones that are like, I mean, they literally threw a party for me.
Mm-hmm.
Or for us, like when after I found out everything that happened with my marriage and stuff, like I was just so distraught, and they're like,
Mhm.
let's come on, you're coming to our house, and we had a party, and everybody, they like prayed for me, and I mean, that's crazy. Like that is, to me, that's the thing I never would expect it. And you know what's crazy is the church people, like that, those are the ones, like, where they at? You know what I mean? Like that's the part that I struggle with. But at the same time, I'm not
They're
judging
the
them.
ones that listen to this podcast but will not click the like button.
That's true.
On the post.
That is true.
But we know you're listening. Sorry.
But that's the part. That's the one that, like, it's like in one breath I'm like, man, that really hurts that's the way the way it's gone down, and that's the way I've been treated. But at the same time, it's like because of where I was, I would have done the same exact thing if it was somebody else in these shoes. And I know I would do that because I did it for a long time. People would get divorces, and I would know this much of the story. Anytime somebody gets a divorce, by the way, you probably know this much of what's going on.
And also I want to say, like, there's two sides. No, there's three. There's
Yep.
his side, her side, and then the truth.
Yeah. Absolutely. And in anything like that. And so, like, but because of that, I did that as a pastor on a staff at a church.
Mm-hmm.
I would hear people's stories. Oh, they got a divorce, and I just would shake my head at them and be like, what is y'all's problem?
Yeah.
Why would y'all ever do that? Why aren't you being stronger, male? You're supposed to be the man of the house, and you're supposed to be the leader.
Please don't get me started.
I'm not
going
going to get you started.
We
Don't
can say that for
no.
another podcast.
We're not going down that road. But like, my point is, like, because I was so focused on people, like, obeying the rules, I missed out on relationships with people that were actually just like me. Like, just because I was the Pharisee side, like, those are the people that killed Jesus. I keep saying Pharisee, but if you don't know what that is, like, that's the Christian leaders that actually ended up killing Jesus and sending him to the cross because of all their thoughts on things. And so when I appeared to feel like I was right or righteous, I was actually the most wrong. Like I actually was the most wrong, above cussing, people drinking, whatever the things may be. And here's what it came down to. I constantly compared my actions to other people's actions versus comparing God's standard, which he calls us to be righteous. He expects, he has this, like, it's this crazy thing about the Christian faith. It's like this expectation for perfection, but at the same time, he knows we can't be perfect. And so that's our, like, strive to be like Jesus. And so yeah, I was that, and now those friends that I have, because I'm able to look at things different, and because they just came and loved me, like, judgment free. Like, they asked me questions. Did you do this? Did you do that? And whatever answer I gave them, it didn't matter. It was just like, well, okay, let's move on. Like, yep, I'm gonna love you anyway. Let's go.
So I think that the overall theme and, like, the message of what you went through would be the verse: exalt yourself and you will be humbled. Humble yourself and you will be exalted.
Yeah, for sure.
So I think, God's really poured out his favor on you ever since you went through all of that. So it's a blessing that you had experienced all of those things and all those kind of the rejection from your friends and just the betrayal within your marriage and best friend and just everything really, that it's all a blessing, even though it sucked, obviously.
Yeah. Now the challenge is to remain humble. Like, that's the hardest part, I think. Anytime someone goes through a hard time and then they get back into like, oh, I'm doing good now, it's that remembering what you went through and remembering what God pulled you out of. Because at the end of the day, I cannot give this to anyone but, like, God. Like, it was solely him for me to look where I was a year ago and look where I'm at now. Like, totally God, and I've seen the same thing in you. Like, I've seen the exact same thing in where you came from, at least the stories you would tell me, and then watching you develop or maybe rediscover, like your relationship with God,
Mm-hmm.
has been really cool to just kind of be in the stands, being a fan. And so that's been cool to see.
I would say that my biggest challenge is forgiveness right now.
Oh, I'm right there with you. I mean, by the way, this is the Authentic Podcast. I mean, we were looking at naming it something like that because like we want this to be real and authentic, and like if people can't be authentic, then it's just the same old stuff. And so I think we're desperate for authenticity. And so yeah, like that's where we're both at. Like we're both just struggling with forgiveness stuff, and it's hard, and it's unfortunately with like a lot of people, so it feels more daunting.
It's a lot of work.
Yeah, it is a lot of work. But it's worth it.
Yeah.
I know it's worth it at the end, and to be able to see
it's
it.
what we're called to do.
Yeah.
So even if we don't want to do it, that's what we're called to do. So it's all a matter of obedience.
True dat. I almost said wode, but I don't know if that's exactly how you say it. True dat wode? I don't know. That's a phrase from back before you were born,
Okay.
ma'am.
Okay.
But you do look dope in your, what do you call this thing?
Well, actually, the funny thing is, one time a coworker told me that this looked like, so he's from New York, so I thought he said I thought he said a bathrobe, but he actually said a bath rug. And then the bath rug you have for that powder room down there, literally like it is this jacket. So
that is awesome.
But it's called a Sherpa.
So that is one dope Sherpa bath rug.
Yes.
That is awesome. It looks like a giant blanket. You look cozy.
Yeah, I love it.
I'm wearing the same sweatpants I wore in the last video, I'm pretty sure. So, and a hoodie. And I did my hair.
It looks great.
Thanks. I went and got my hair did for Friday, and then Snowmageddon happened. So it's like, why'd I go get my hair done? But anyway. All right. Well, it's been fun. I think to wrap it all up, the unexpected, if you're going through the bad season of unexpected right now, just put your faith in God and get ready for the good, because it will come.
It will. And just, I think, an outlet for me has always been writing. So I would, I wrote like in my notes on my phone like all the time. So just find your outlet, and a healthy one, not, the unhealthy ones. We want to stay away from that. But, and just allow yourself to actually embrace what you're going through. Allow yourself to feel the feelings, and even if that means not having feelings at all, just embrace it and know that a new season is coming, and that it'll get better. It's all just a matter of sometimes we're not even willing to go through what we're asked to go through. It's just, you got to be tough.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah, for sure. Learning to be tough. That's awesome. Well, this has been Serving Lemonade Podcast. Thanks for listening.
Yep.
Catch y'all later.